a member of the Foggy Bottom West End Village Program Committee, and we welcome you to another Zoom presentation. We are very pleased today to have the owner and operator of the Watergate Gallery, Dale Johnson, who will talk about all aspects of running a private art gallery. Dale Johnson came to Washington, D.C. to attend American University, where she earned a BA in art history. After a series of events, she found herself working at a photography studio / picture framing business located at the Watergate. She has owned and operated Watergate Gallery and Frame Design since 1986. The business started out doing primarily custom framing. As time evolved, she was able to enlarge the space for exhibiting more artwork. The gallery has given her the opportunity to exhibit all sorts of artwork for a variety of artists, including paintings, prints, photography, sculpture, and ceramics. I have known Dale for many years, and so I'm doubly delighted to have her here with us today. Enjoy the time with her, and thank you for joining us. And Dale, the spotlight is all yours.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm glad to have you interested in seeing what I have to say here today. Jackie asked me to talk about how a gallery operates, what we do here, how we get around to getting the artists that we have. And as she said, I started this business back many years ago. I took it over on my own in 1986, but I had been involved with it for a number of years previous to that. And it was a frame / photo studio, and so I learned lots of different things. But then as time evolved and I was involved with the business with a former partner, we had artists that I did framing for that then questioned about maybe possibly exhibiting their work. And I was like, well, if I like your work and I like you, then it might just work. So in our small little space, we started exhibiting artwork for, as I said, people who were customers of mine generally. And then it sort of expanded from that. More people find out about what you're doing, and then they want to get more inquiries from artists from different places. This is really back in the 80s, and it's a while ago, and things were really very different back then than they are now. But while I was here and doing framing, I had a wonderful opportunity of meeting an artist, Carlos Paez Vilavo, who is from Uruguay, and he lived across the street from the Watergate in Potomac Plaza. And he was here visiting in order to do some restoration work on a tunnel that he had painted a number of years ago, which goes under Independence Avenue from the Pan American Union to somewhere. I'm not absolutely sure, but he came in and he was an exciting guy, wanted to show his artwork here. So we said, why not? And that turned out to be a great experience. He's a very well-known artist in Uruguay. Unlike in the United States, when it's such a big country, it's a lot of artists here. In Uruguay, a smaller country, there's not as many artists, so he really stood out. So I actually stayed in touch with him for many years, and he's been back in Washington a couple of times. He's no longer with us, but that was probably one of the first real big gallery experiences that we had here. Then come upon meeting artists. You meet artists in all different ways. Either they come to you or you meet them in different places. And as I said, if you like the artist and you like their work, it's a lot easier to show them and to try and do something for them. Then I guess probably a lot of you have heard about Bill D'Italia. He's lived in Foggy Bottom for many, many years, worked at the Smithsonian, and he lived up on 25th Street. And I met him through, he was doing a show at a gallery up, it's the Old Mill or something up on Rock Creek Parkway. And he had some framers doing his work for him, and they were unable to finish the framing. So he asked me if I could do it for him. So I was like, I don't see why not. And then I got to see all these amazing paintings that he did, basically just small little scenes, maybe 6x8, 8x10. Probably the biggest ones, maybe 11x14 size wise, of the whole Foggy Bottom area, and sort of that little area around the State Department. And people were just loving his paintings. When we had his show, they loved his paintings because they saw what they saw out their windows, or the painting may have been a painting with their row house in there. So people were snatching up those paintings. They're really reasonably priced. He just loved doing them. That was his entire life. And another artist that I showed here at the gallery, who maybe a lot of you have heard of, was Eva Jacob, who also lived in Potomac Plaza across from the Watergate. And she also did scenes around Washington. Her style was much more sort of impressionistic, looser than Bill's were very distinctive, sort of more photographic like paintings. But that we actually had Bill, I showed how I probably had about 6 or 8 shows with him, and we were planning the last show that I had with his work was in 2015, when the show was going to take place in October, and unfortunately he passed away in August, and I wound up having a big retrospective of his work. And if anybody is interested in seeing anything like of that, they can always go look at my website and see lots of the different artists that I've shown here. Artists were introduced to me, Antonia Ramos Miguel, who I just recently had a show for over the pandemic. I put it up in October, and not knowing what was going to happen, I wound up just keeping it up the entire time, because as you know, we were also restricted in our movements, that there wasn't much I couldn't really have very many receptions and things for inviting people to the gallery. So I met so many wonderful artists. I met Stephen Bates, who played the clarinet for the Washington, the Kennedy Center orchestra that plays for the operas and ballets and so on. He's a wonderful artist. I had a show with some Foggy Bottom artists, one of them being a woman, Amelia Harkin, who was the director of the Smithsonian Associates program. And through her, I met Alfredo Ratnoff, which some of you who've been to the gallery would be familiar with his work in clay, primarily clay, both wall pieces. And I don't think we have any of his work to show you, but you could maybe put up Jonas, you could put up the slide with the paintings of, well, this is the gallery, and actually that's Alfredo's work on the top piece there, the one with the sculptures on the back pedestal, on the back thing, yeah, exactly where the arrow is. Below that is when I've had a show of Haitian art. I met many years ago, I met a gentleman whose family had a gallery in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and wound up showing Haitian art, which was extremely popular for a long period of time because of its the nature of its and the colorful um what do we call that, sort of primitive style. But then how about the other slide with the paintings and things in it, Jonas? Yeah, this one. So all the selected works there. That shows a number of different kinds of art that I've shown here at the gallery. I probably won't go through each one of those people, but the on the top left is Helen Zugabe, which I've got the show for her currently that I hope some of you will come and see. And on the bottom there's the neon piece by Craig Kraft, who I've met through the Arts in Foggy Bottom program, which I'll talk more about later. Let's see in 2005, as I went along all these years with our small little space here doing framing and showing artwork. And then in 2005, my landlord said, would you like to expand the gallery? The space next to me had been empty for a number of years. So I was like, well, things are going really well. I have 2 boys and they were no longer babies. So I thought, well, they'll take care of themselves a little bit better. And I went and decided to expand the gallery. And as it turned out, by the time we signed all the papers, I had 3 weeks in order to get the expansion done because I had a show planned back for Bill d'Italia. He was in my first expanded show, and it was a 2-person show with Kevin Adams, who actually the red barn there in the picture is Kevin Adams, who was at the time working with the Washington Opera. And that's how I got to meet him, because I did a lot of framing for the Washington Opera and consequently met people that worked with the opera. And Kevin's like, well, maybe I can show at your gallery. And I liked his pieces, and he and Bill became good friends and thought they would really like to show together. So we went ahead and did that show, which was exciting in the new space, which has, as many of you now know, is that so much more light and space and can function better as a gallery. So then, I don't know, then you just go on to meet artists, as I say, in all different ways. I had this artist, David Rothamel from New Mexico, who I met through this woman who brought him by and said, I would love to have a show. I think you'll sell his work. And we did. It turned out very well. He had a lot of the Southwest painting. There's not one of his on this thing. So and photography, I got involved in showing photography. There was a group that did the photo week back a number of years ago, and every October the galleries, October or November, would do a show featuring photography so that we would give the artists who are photographers a better chance of being noted as artists. A lot of people would say, "Oh, photography, I can take that picture," but no, you can't necessarily take that picture. It, there's a lot of work that's involved in the both the materials that people use, the eye that they have, that they're professionals. Um, then 2008 is when Arts in Foggy Bottom, maybe then we can go move on to the next slide with the Arts in Foggy Bottom, Jonas. 2008, we started the Arts in Foggy Bottom program, which Jackie Lemire and Jill Nevius and Mary Kay Shaw began, and they invited me to be on the committee along with some other people, other artists here and entrepreneurs and whatever in the area. And I met a lot of wonderful sculptors doing that show. We did the first one 2008, and then subsequently every 2 years, I did another show and with different curators, so we would get a different mix of art, a different mix of themes that the shows were titled, and the artists were asked to do something that related to that theme. The first one, when I first was going to, the funny story is when I was first gonna do the sculpture, and I told people I was gonna have this sculpture in the gallery, people said to me, "Oh, what are you, crazy? Nobody buys sculpture. You know, you're gonna, how are you gonna exist?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna try it out. We'll see what happens." And consequently, I sold a lot of sculpture. In fact, that one bronze piece that's there was Robert Cole. That was sold, and the white piece there, the Leap Moon, that was sold. It wound up being a great event, and I had, as I said, I met so many wonderful sculptors who then I invited to be in shows subsequently in the gallery, either usually group shows and maybe having a painter along with and a sculptor if their work felt good together. So that was a really wonderful thing. Now, actually, I am able to, along with sometimes having sculpture at the gallery, the management here at the Watergate has allowed me to put sculpture in the plaza area. I don't know, there's the outdoor sculpture slide, Jonas, that you can put that one up. Now this is the number 4 slide. There we go. Yeah, so it's been great being able to put work out there in the plaza, and the blue one there, can't remember if that's sold, but I've sold a number of pieces that have been out there that are either private collections. One of them is in Middleburg. Some of them are on balconies here at the Watergate. It's just been, and the people who are using that plaza area are so happy to have the sculpture there because it really beautifies the landscape, just as when we're getting ready to do our next outdoor sculpture show starting on June 5th. All these sculptures, I think starting on Saturday, are going to be installed in front of the houses. So everybody's going to have to take some strolls around the neighborhood and see what's there. I don't know all the details on that, but I will be having a show in the gallery, which will have art by those artists that are participating outdoors, so that anybody who sees this sculpture outside can come to the gallery and see what their smaller pieces or what other kinds of work they do will be exhibited here. Um, so that's about the Arts and Foggy Bottom. Then a really fun thing that happened back in, it's actually 2012. It's hard to believe it's been that long ago. As I said, I do custom framing, and a frame company that I dealt with up in New York, the kind of frames that they do that are on paintings like at the National Gallery, those ornate gold leaf frames. They the fellow who owns the place, Max Munn, called me one day here at the Watergate, and he said, I need to talk to you, but I'm not talking to you about framing. I want to talk to you about an artist. And I said, okay. And he said, it's my wife, and she has done portraits of all the people that have been involved in the Watergate scandal. Now, Jonas, maybe, yeah, there we go. And so I just, being familiar with portraits in Washington, like the Gilbert Stuarts of George Washington and so on, I am just imagining that this is what these paintings are going to look like. And he says, she will come down to Washington. She'll bring a couple of the paintings down. They're all 16 by 20 in size. She'll bring some of the paintings down, and then you can decide if you want to do something with her. So, as I said, I was imagining, George Washington style portraits. And when she arrived and she took out these portraits, there's one of Nixon there on the top in the center. I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing. These are fantastic. I said, yes, definitely we're going to have a show with these paintings, because the break-in, the anniversary of the break-in was coming up in, I guess, June of 2012, the 40-year anniversary, right? So she was like, great. So we made all the plans. As she said, there were over 70 paintings. Everybody from Nixon to the security guard, the Washington Post people, the Justice Department, everybody, all the crooks. So G. Gordon Liddy, one of them, of course, and so we made the arrangements. I was going to bring all the paintings down here, and I sent her a layout of the gallery so she could see exactly how they would fit into the gallery, seeing if there was, as I say, over 70 of them. And when she brought them down, and someone from the office building, from my management, saw them and said, oh, you're doing this Watergate thing? And I said, yeah. And he said, the Washington Post is reserving the top floor of the office building, the 2600 office building where the break-in took place. They're going to be doing a whole party with the break-in, and talks with Ben Bradley and Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward and a number of other people who are still alive and had lots to say about that break-in. So they invited us to come to that, and then at the time it was on the top floor where the National Trust is currently now, but it was empty at the time. And the office where the break-in had taken place was actually vacant at the time, and they told us that we could hang all the portraits in that office. And after they did this whole program about about the break-in, as I say, with Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward and Ben Bradley, and they told people they could go down to this sixth floor to the site of the break-in and view these portraits. So they all came to, so people, I mean, it was a big party. It was a lot of fun. And but what I, as a gallery, am saying, I, there's always a rent that needs to be paid. So you always have to sort of hopefully make some money off of whatever shows you're doing. And um, I said, Lori Munn, the artist, she did not want to sell the portraits individually. So she said they they would make posters, and they made posters that are the entire group of people, and that's part of what you're seeing here is part of the poster. And then we did a uh, with like a graph with all the names on it, so you would know who all those people were, the identifier. Uh, and so we had, I don't remember how many posters, but we sold every poster that we had. It was just extraordinary. And she signed the posters but then we had to take all those paintings and put them back down in the gallery as she had planned them to be in the first place. And I had this show up like probably for a month, and it was fun because people kept coming in who had lived here, lived next door to people like Rosemary Woods, lived in the Watergate, and the John Mitchell, and um, everybody had stories to tell about these various and sundry people involved in the Watergate break-in. So that was a fun event to have. Another 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 thing that I've done with the gallery also is I've done group shows, which are actually based on a theme. I come up with a theme and I ask, varying from maybe 20 to 30, 35 artists, depending upon what I'm thinking at the time, to do something that's related to the theme that I did. And I started that I was working with another gallery where we had this whole idea that we were going to each invite artists to do the theme and then switch the paintings back, from their gallery to my gallery. And it got too complicated and we didn't wind up doing that, but we each had our own separate show, and the show was titled Our Lady of Perpetual Exhaustion, which is a fun title. I mean, you can think of it in so many different ways. And I decided for that, I painted, but I hadn't painted in quite some time because between having a business and a family, I just really didn't have much time to do my own artwork. But I decided for that particular show that I was going to paint a painting because I thought that is like the perfect description of me, Our Lady of Perpetual Exhaustion. There's never a time when you felt like you had been able to complete everything thoroughly as you'd hoped. Um, so I don't remember all the artists, but it was a great group of people, both women, even though it's Our Lady of Perpetual Exhaustion. I invited some men artists to participate in that show. And my own painting, as I say, I put my own painting there, and I wondered, this is the first time I've exhibited something in the gallery, and if couldn't even remember when the last time was. So I put a price on it, and somebody came in and they really liked it, and they said to me, um, I really would like to purchase that, but I really can't afford that much. And so I wonder if he'll come down on the price. And having a name like Dale, as many of you know, that can be both a girl's name and a guy's name. So I said to her, I said, well, you know what? That he is actually me. And yes, I will lower the price if you really want to buy my painting. I was really very honored to have that take place. So that went really well. So I decided usually about once a year, once every year and a half, I would do another theme show. I did food for the body, food for the soul, the magic within, light and movement, the other side, all topics which are pretty broad so that I could include paintings, I could include sculpture, pretty much whatever anybody, fabric art, whatever anybody felt that they was applying to that theme. And I would ask the artist, that was the one requirement, that you had to write something that I would put alongside of your artwork that said how your artwork, how it related to the theme. Some people wrote one line, some people wrote paragraphs, some people wrote poems, some people wrote a page. It's like all different variety of explanations, which is always fun for the people who are coming to visit, for them to see that and participate. It becomes a participation thing with the between the audience and the artwork, the painter. So um and I just, running the gallery in the Watergate, which, as everybody knows, has a reputation for the variety of people who have lived here. And I've had a great honor to be able to serve a lot of the people that live here. And some of the more the humorous ones, I tell people now. For a long time I didn't really talk about it that much because I felt like it was private. Monica Lewinsky came in to do framing, and she came in with her mother at one point, and they had a poem that she had written to, and she just wanted it matted. It was a time when the Safeway was still here, and they were going in the Safeway, and then they were going to come back and pick up the poem, matted poem, and take it. It was a birthday gift, and as it turns out, it was a birthday gift for Bill Clinton, which I found humorous, but I don't remember the poem, but it was kind of like a roses are red, violets are blue kind of a thing. So that was funny. And then I framed for her a picture of her in the rose garden with Bill Clinton, as I had done, framed many pictures of interns with the president, whichever president it was at the time. Everybody gets their picture taken with the president, so then they frame it for their memorabilia wall. And so I framed hers, and later on, this was all in August and September, and then when it came out about the affair, whatever, between Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, I was on a skiing vacation with friends up in Deep Creek Lake with our families, and and the thing came out, everybody's like, oh, she lives in the Watergate, you must know her. And I'm going, the name seems kind of familiar, but I can't really remember because, it had been months and months and framed lots of things and met lots of different people in between. So as it turns out, I come back from my ski vacation. I've had all these messages from people wondering what I knew, from people from the Washington Post, people from People magazine that I knew. It's like, oh gosh, I'm not saying anything because this is private. This is this person's privacy. They deserve to have privacy. So my friends were like, I can't believe you won't tell us anything. It's like, well, at that point, no. It's like not an honorable thing to do, in my opinion. But now, all these years later, I don't know that it really matters. Another person I've done framing for had a wonderful experiences with, and I feel so fortunate, is Justice Ginsburg. She was a great lady and a very she knew what she wanted, and if you gave her what she wanted, she was happy, and there was no questions. So there's so many different people that I've worked with over the years. As I said, like, that's some of that is more in the framing end of the business, which you see the variety of frames that we have available. So and I would say sometimes that I've been able to carve out a great little business here that have served so many different people, and providing beautiful framing, providing beautiful art, providing meaningful things to people. A lot of as and our world changes, our world keeps changing, and you find, as probably you find in a lot of different things, that styles change as depending upon what's going on, and people's focus changes. And after 9/11, I was here actually framing pictures for a show for Bill D'Italia when 9/11 happened, and it was really sad because things just sort of came to a standstill, and I would be sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? This is I'm not really providing anything, of any value. But then people started coming into the gallery. I had a show with Kevin Adams, the fellow that was with the Washington Opera, of watercolors that he had done of fruits and vegetables. And I think people were finding them to be so warm, and they could see something, and it was something that was beautifully done, and it gave people a lot of pleasure just to come into the gallery and feel like it was a safe space where there was really nice stuff to look at. So then I was like, well, maybe I am providing some kind of valuable service to people by being able to provide beautiful things. And with the pandemic now that we've just been through this past winter, a year ago, I wondered if I was going to be able to stay in business, because with everything being shut down. But the loyalty of my clients coming back, and people staying home and not going anywhere, they started coming and reframing things. And for a while there, even all my suppliers were shut down. Everybody was cleaning up after the pandemic. But then once things started reopening, it started picking back up again. So I guess I keep thinking, well, maybe we do have a valuable service here for people. The current show that I have at the gallery that I hope you'll all come and see is with Helen Sugaib, who we all know. She was on a village program earlier, I'm not sure exactly how long ago, but hopefully some of you have got to hear her talk about her artwork and her love of the Arab Spring and then her following of the Syrian refugee issues. She's got a show she's part of a show at the gallery that is Inside Looking Out, which we basically based it on what was it like in the past year for artists who were sort of trapped. I mean, they spend a lot of time by themselves anyways when they're doing their artwork, but then when you're not sure how long this was going to go on for and what the next step was going to be. So we thought that maybe by May that we'd be coming out of the funk with springtime coming. So I invited Helen, and then she said, well, I can't really do the whole gallery by myself. So I invited J. Ford Huffman, that some of you may know. He lives over in Hughes Mews behind the River Inn. And he also, I think, will be exhibiting a piece with the outdoor Foggy Bottom sculpture show, which I think is called Nature and Human, or Human Nature. So if you haven't, he does, they call them like little theaters. He puts a lot of all different little items into boxes. As if some of you are familiar with Joseph Cornell, is kind of that kind of work where he's builds has an idea and he builds a story in this little theater, and they're just really unique and fun. Great sense of humor. Both he and Helen have great senses of humor, so you can see that in their work as well, even though it's serious, but it still has a little edge to it. We are going to have, actually, I'm happy to announce that the current show of Helen and J. Ford Huffman, Inside Looking Out, is going to be reviewed in the Washington Post on Sunday. So anybody who gets the Washington Post, or you can look it up online, read what Mark Jenkins has to say about their work, and come see if you agree with it. So, I'm not sure what else we want to talk about. I didn't know if you want to open up any kind of questions, Jonas.
There were a couple questions that came in through the chat. If you want to, I'll ask you those.
Sure.
Do you have a specific medium you prefer for exhibits?
No, I've just been open to anything, as I say, paintings, sculpture, photography, ceramics. I've had some fabric arts, and no particular style either. It really is based on if I think, if I like it, if I hopefully have an audience that's gonna like it. And that's kind of how I come about figuring who's gonna be in the show. And the two things, the gallery and the framing, have kind of balanced each other so that neither has to be the whole business. They work off of each other. And I know someone asked something about how do the, I mean, basically the work that comes in has to be able to be exhibited on the wall or on pedestals or on the floor. If I can provide framing for artists, they can't always afford all the cost of fancy framing, but we figure things out to make it presentable.
Someone asked, what was the most unusual item you framed?
I've framed a lot of different things. I said I framed an ice pick that Sir Edmund Hillary ascended Mount Everest with back in 1953. He did. So it was a shadow box. I don't know if you're familiar with shadow boxes, but where you have to have a frame that has some depth to it, that the piece can be inside of it. So that was a challenge, but it came out really well. I've framed guns. I've framed pieces from someone's bridal dress. It's just anything you can imagine. We figure out how to put a frame on it and how to preserve it. Basically, everything I do when it comes to framing, I want it to be conservation. I had an opportunity myself to take classes at the Smithsonian Residence Associates program back a number of years ago with both the head framer at the National Gallery. He's retired now, but Hugh Phibbs. I learned a lot from him and how they do it in museums. And so I like to think that that's how I do my framing, is the way they do it in museums. And then I also took a class on frame restoration from Stanley Robertson, who was also at the National Gallery. And then I realized during that class that I probably was not going to be pursuing that, because I mean, that's something that's a full-time thing. I mean, you can't be doing all this other stuff and restoring frames at the same time. So, but it was good to know then sources of how to get that stuff done. And Hugh Phibbs was great. Working for the Smithsonian, he said, anytime you have a question about anything, feel free to call me, because he said, I'm basically working for you. Your tax dollars are paying my salary. So therefore, you're entitled to anything that I know. And that was, I did call him on a couple occasions. And I actually have on one piece that is now hanging at the Museum of African American History, that I framed for somebody who then donated it to the museum. And when I went to the museum, I got to see the piece that I had framed on the wall, which was kind of a nice thing. That felt professional. So.
Great. There was a question that came in. Do you have any photos of the current exhibit? And follow up from me. What is sort of the time frame of the exhibit? When
it
does it
ends
close?
on the 29th, because we have to start the next show. So you have to come by, and I am going to be, the 29th is Memorial Day weekend, but I am going to be open on that Saturday. I won't be open Sunday and Monday, but this is the card from that show, having both Helen's piece and Jay Ford's. So can you see that?
Yeah, that works. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
otherwise, I have to walk around the gallery and show you that. I'm not sure that I can take the computer and do that. So
yeah. There were a couple other questions in the chat, but if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, they're more than welcome to do that as well to reach that portion of the program. Someone asked, Someone talked about a show you did in your gallery where the work was done by prisoners.
I do. I have I have a bin with artwork that is done by people in who are incarcerated, and someone I know who lives here in the neighborhood, I guess, spent some time himself in prison and realized how important it is for those people to have access to things in the arts, whether it's pencils to write with, paper, and the paint to do paintings. So he started this art. It's called what's it? Oh, why can't I think of it right now? Whatever, I'll think of it. He started this program, and it provides materials for the prisoners, and then he sells their work. So I've had this for, oh gosh, probably might be as much as 20 years now. I know hundreds of pieces I've sold over the years. So just unframed in a bin, and inexpensive. So it gives those people in prison an opportunity to do something and for people to appreciate what they've done. On the back of them, some of them say what their crime was and how they wound up there. And there's one guy in there for life, which is kind of creepy, but he's an incredible artist and does a lot of painting. So
Great. That sounds like a great project.
it's just something I thought, I think back when I was first in business, I used to think when Lorton was still out there in Virginia, I think we should run a program where we have teach prisoners framing. We could teach them framing, and then they could, when they get out of prison, they could do something with their lives, so they don't have to wind up being in jail. And then I started working with framing, and it's hard work, and there's only so much you can charge for it. There's only so much money you can make on it, and it's, as I say, time consuming. I thought nobody's gonna want. They're coming out. They make much more money selling drugs than they do picture framing, so they're probably not interested in framing. But I thought that was my original idea back in my 20s, and before I realized that how much work and effort it is to run a business too. And when this fellow approached me about selling the art from prisoners, I was like, oh good, this is answering that thought that I had years ago. Now I am getting to do something for these people that have had hardships in their lives and need an audience.
Okay, great. Someone asked, what's the next show?
That's the art by the artists who are involved with the outdoor arts in Foggy Bottom. The sculpture that's going to be out on the historic district of Foggy Bottom out here, like 20 New Hampshire Avenue to 26th Street and like I Street. It's just that small little area that will have sculptures in the front yard. It's scaled down. It was supposed to be last summer, but because of the pandemic, it was canceled and postponed till this summer. And in the past, just because we had more freedom of movement and getting together, is I would meet the artists before the show, but this all happened now very quickly, getting it put together. So I really haven't had the opportunity to meet the artists. I know two of them because they were in previous shows, but I don't know them. So I'm not sure what kind of art I'm going to get here at the gallery, but will do my best to make it look good and showcase all their work. So they'll be bringing stuff in the next week probably for me to see and start planning what to do with.
It's got to be that's a fun challenge.
It's always these, when I don't know the artist, which it's been the case with a lot of these outdoor the arts in Foggy Bottom, because their artists are coming from all over the area, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, and so it's not like they can just pop over here either. So it's always been a challenge, but it always winds up coming out well. So I just have that positive attitude. Once again, you have to think positive and just it always works out, and I'm sure it will work out once again, I hope.
Dale, may I ask another question? It's Lorna. As a gallerist, that's a rather unique position to have. Is there any kind of association of other galleries, like private galleries, where you get together on things?
Yeah, I'm sorry about the phone ringing. I went to move it before, but it hasn't rung to now. There was a Washington metropolitan area gallery group. It was funny because I've always been a frame shop and gallery, and a lot of times some of the galleries don't really like to recognize a gallery that's also doing something else like framing. You know, it's like they want to be more exclusive. So I wasn't really invited for a long time to be part of any of those gallery groups, but then things started changing, and things have changed a lot over the years. And we did have a group of gallery owners, but then, you know, it was kind of too bad because it was hard to get everybody together. It was hard to make a time when everybody could get together. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do once we get together? What information are we going to share with each other? Yeah, that really is going to make a difference in our lives. So that kind of fell apart. And as far as I know, there's really nothing right now. Nobody's invited me. But framing, there's a Professional Picture Framers Association, PPFA, that I was a member of for many years, back, 30 years ago, that I went to all their meetings, and there we did trade lots of information, framing information, materials. The framing industry has grown and changed so much in the last 40 years since I've been doing it. It's just, we're so much more into preservation, conservation, what's available. There's just so much more available than there was. The designers are getting involved in frames, and beautiful things coming out of Italy and Spain and France, and just as the world has gotten more international, the framing business has too, and we do, they say, take more preservation into consideration so that we can preserve things. If you're gonna frame it, you might as well, if you're gonna go through the trouble of framing, you might as well make it so that it will last forever.
I think it's been remarkable that in our little neighborhood, how many artists there have been, and to have your wonderful gallery here to showcase their work. So thank you so much, Dale. I'm fascinated by what you do.
And thank you. Yeah, we're just about out of time.
I started doing it so many years ago, and it just kept evolving and growing, and then you get to one point and you go, okay, well, what else? I don't know how to do anything else. I've got to keep this going, because what else am I going to do with myself? So,
Well, you
so
bring so
I've
much light.
managed. I'm lucky to have family that have supported my being in this business, because without them, it probably wouldn't have worked. So.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're just about out of time, but thank you very much for it. It's a certainly fascinating profession.
Well,
And
thank
you
you.
get access to
Thank you
all
for
these interesting people.
it's fun to do, because it's fun to go back and remember. One day to the next, you forget what happened the day before almost, and then when I have to think back to what went on years ago, it's like, wow, it's like I have come a long way, or whatever. And done a lot of fun things, even though I keep coming back to opening up, unlocking this same door every day. It's like every day is different, which makes it interesting. At least you're not doing the same thing over and over again. It's lots of challenges.
Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you.